The gravel crunched beneath our tires as we pulled into the ranch driveway, the morning sun spilling golden light across the fields. For my wife, Emily, and our twin boys, this wasn't just a move, it was a homecoming. After years of city life and corporate grind, we were finally returning to the land my grandfather built from nothing. 200 acres of raw freedom. Ours. The boys tumbled out of the truck before it even stopped, chasing each other through the tall grass, their laughter filling the wide-open space. Emily smiled, her eyes scanning the rolling hills, the red barn weathered but standing strong. She grabbed a box from the truck bed, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "This feels right," she said softly. I barely had time to agree before the first sign of trouble appeared. A gleaming white SUV barreled down the dirt road, tires spitting dust like it owned the place. It skidded to a stop at the end of our driveway. Out stepped a woman who could only be described as an HOA nightmare in human form, platinum blonde bob, oversized sunglasses, a clipboard clutched like a weapon. She was flanked by two goons wearing matching polos, trying hard to look intimidating. "You can't park that here," she announced, pointing a manicured finger at my old Ford F-350. Her tone was sharp, rehearsed, like she'd been waiting for this confrontation. "This is private property governed by the Lakeside Heritage Community Association." I exchanged a glance with Emily. She gave a small shake of her head, silently telling me, "Don't start anything." "Not yet." "I'm sorry," I said, stepping forward. "This is the Harris Ranch. Been in my family for 3 generations. We're not part of any HOA." Karen's lips tightened. "That's a common misconception. The association recently expanded its jurisdiction. All properties within this perimeter are subject to our bylaws. You're required to attend the new resident orientation today at 4. She thrust a packet of papers at me. Membership contracts, compliance guidelines, and a welcome invoice demanding $500. I didn't take them. "Ma'am, this land is private. We're not part of your HOA. You're standing on Harris Ranch property, and you're trespassing." Her expression didn't falter, but the smile that followed was ice cold. "Refusing to comply will result in immediate fines. I suggest you get familiar with our CC and RS before this situation escalates." Behind her, one of the polo-clad enforcers snapped a photo of our truck with his phone. The other scribbled notes on a clipboard. They moved like a practiced unit, fully confident in their self-appointed authority. Emily stepped beside me. "Look, we're just here to move in. We don't want any trouble. But you're mistaken if you think this land falls under your HOA." Karen's sunglasses reflected the sun as she adjusted them. "It's not a matter of opinion, dear. It's a matter of governance. We've had too many residents thinking they can just bypass community standards. But that's not how it works here." The audacity in her tone wasn't new to me. HOA bullies like her thrived on intimidation, assuming most folks didn't have the time or backbone to push back. But Karen had picked the wrong family this time. I leaned in slightly. "You're going to need more than a clipboard and a bad attitude to claim this land, Karen. We've got deeds, records, and a century of family history to back it." That seemed to crack her veneer, if only for a moment. Her lips pressed into a thin line as she signaled her minions to follow. But as she turned to leave, she paused, glancing over her shoulder. "You'll be hearing from us soon. One way or another, everyone in this community plays by the rules. You do well to remember that." With that, she climbed into her SUV and sped off, leaving a cloud of dust swirling in her wake. Emily let out a breath. Well, that was welcoming. I wrapped an arm around her shoulder, watching the SUV vanish down the road. Something tells me Karen doesn't take no very well. Our boys came running back, oblivious to the storm brewing on the horizon. But Emily and I knew better. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Karen didn't waste time. By Monday morning, the assault had begun. We woke to find bright orange violation stickers slapped across our barn doors, accusing us of unauthorized livestock structures. A notice of immediate compliance was zip-tied to our mailbox, Karen's latest handiwork. But that wasn't the worst part. When I tried to retrieve the notice, I discovered the mailbox had been unbolted, dumped unceremoniously in a ditch. Emily read the violation notice aloud, her tone flat with disbelief. Mailbox placement is in breach of HOA standards, improper height, non-approved design. She crumpled the paper, her patience fraying. This is harassment. I nodded grimly. She's baiting us. Wants us to snap. The boys, sensing the tension, stayed unusually quiet. But I saw it in their eyes, the confusion, the fear. Karen was turning our dream homecoming into a siege. Later that afternoon, a tow truck rumbled up the driveway. A lanky man in a reflective vest hopped out, clipboard in hand, casually approaching our tractor like it was an abandoned sedan. "You lost, friend," I called out. He shrugged. "Got a dispatch to impound an unregistered vehicle obstructing HOA property." "That vehicle is a working tractor," I said, stepping closer, "on private ranch land. You're about 5 acres off HOA turf." He scratched his head, glancing at the sprawling fields. "Look, man, I'm just doing what the work order says." Karen said. "Karen doesn't own this land." "I do." I pulled out a folded copy of our property deed, practically memorized by now. "You tow anything off this ranch, and you'll be trespassing." "You sure you want that on record?" The driver paled. He muttered an apology, climbed back into his truck, and hightailed it out of there. But Karen wasn't finished. That evening, as the sun bled into the horizon, Emily and I were out fixing the front gate. The boys were helping in their own chaotic way, gathering stray nails and wood planks. We had just started to breathe when the sound of tires crunching over gravel stiffened my spine. Karen's SUV appeared once more. But this time, it wasn't just her clipboard doing the talking. She stepped out, hand firmly gripping a silver pistol. "Evening, Harris family," she said, voice syrupy but laced with venom. "I've given you ample opportunity to comply. But enough is enough. You're going to sign those HOA contracts tonight." Emily instinctively moved in front of the boys, shielding them with her body. I stepped between Karen and my family, adrenaline spiking but voice steady. "Karen, put the gun down. You're trespassing. You're threatening a family on their own land. That's a felony." Karen's smile didn't waver. "You're the ones in violation. This property is under HOA jurisdiction now. Noncompliance is subject to enforcement. You think you're special because your name's on some dusty deed? This community follows rules." Her arrogance was suffocating. She wasn't bluffing. In her mind, the clipboard and the gun held equal authority. I slowly reached for my back pocket. "Karen, think about what you're doing. You point a gun at a landowner on their own property, and there's no HOA bylaw that'll save you." "I'm well within my rights," she hissed, finger twitching near the trigger. "You can cooperate now, or I'll have you arrested for trespassing on HOA land." The irony of that statement was laughable, if not for the cold steel aimed at my chest. But Karen had made one crucial miscalculation. Blue and red lights flared behind her, cutting through the twilight. A sheriff's cruiser pulled up silently. Out stepped Deputy Marshal Scott, a man who'd known this ranch longer than Karen had known how to spell compliance. His presence was calm but imposing, a shotgun visibly mounted in his patrol rack. "Evening, folks," Scott drawled, his gaze fixed on Karen's weapon. "Karen, mind telling me why you're brandishing a firearm on Harris Ranch?" Karen stiffened. "These people are refusing HOA compliance. They're illegally occupying association land. I was enforcing policy." Scott's lips curled into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Karen, you're standing on private property. This ranch has been Harris-owned since before your HOA was a thought in anyone's head. Now holster that pistol before you do something real stupid." For the first time, Karen faltered. Her hand trembled. The illusion of control shattered. Scott took a step forward. "Drop it." Karen's arm sagged as reality hit. She holstered the pistol, but her mouth kept going. "You're making a mistake. You're all making a mistake." Scott was already pulling cuffs from his belt.
"No, Karen."
"The mistake was yours." As the cuffs clicked shut, Karen's voice shrilled. "You'll regret this. You'll all regret this." But her threats vanished into the dusk as Scott guided her to the cruiser. Emily exhaled, hugging the boys close. I watched Karen disappear, knowing full well this battle wasn't over. But the war? That had just begun. Karen's arrest should have ended it. But tyrants rarely know when they're beaten. The very next morning, a certified letter arrived, dropped off by a courier who couldn't make eye contact. It was from Karen's lawyer, an audacious cease and desist, claiming we were obstructing HOA operations and threatening legal action for damages to community governance. The irony wasn't lost on me. Emily read the letter aloud at the kitchen table, shaking her head. She pulls a gun on us, gets arrested, and we're the ones harassing her? She's doubling down, I muttered. But now, she's playing defense. Karen's HOA empire wasn't built on legality. It thrived on intimidation. For years, she'd been muscling families into paying fees they never owed, slapping fake violations on anyone who didn't toe the line. Most folks didn't have the time or resources to fight back. But she'd picked the wrong family this time. By noon, I was at the county clerk's office with Deputy Scott, pulling every land deed, zoning map, and HOA charter on file. What we found was damning. Karen's HOA boundary ended a full quarter-mile before it even touched Harris Ranch. Everything beyond that, including her so-called future development zones, was legally ours. Scott leaned back in his chair, grinning as he tapped the map. Karen's been bluffing for years. But she walked onto your land with a gun, and that's gonna cost her. I had no intention of letting this battle play out behind closed doors. Karen built her power through public spectacle, so we were going to dismantle it the same way. Emily's idea was simple but brilliant. We called for a community town hall, hosted right here on the ranch. No HOA formalities, no official letterheads, just neighbors standing up to a bully. Word spread fast. By Saturday, over 50 families showed up, some curious, most furious. We set up a portable projector against the side of the barn. Deputy Scott brought enlarged boundary maps straight from the county office. They were impossible to argue with. I took the makeshift stage, holding up a bright red violation notice Karen had plastered on our barn. This, I said, is how it starts. Karen counts on folks not having the time or the willpower to check the facts. But the facts are simple. Her HOA ends at this line. I pointed to the boundary on the map, crystal clear for everyone to see. Everything beyond it? She's got no more authority than a random stranger off the street. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. An elderly rancher stood up, his face flushed. She fined me $2,000 for keeping horses. Said it wasn't in line with community aesthetic. My family's bred horses here since the 1950s. Another woman spoke up. She threatened to tow my RV on my own property. I paid the fine because I thought I had no choice. Story after story poured out. Each tale was a thread unraveling Karen's web of fabricated control. But what ignited the crowd was the next revelation. Karen had already started work on a HOA community garden, on a patch of land that was, without dispute, part of Harris Ranch. Emily took the mic, her voice steady. We're reclaiming that space. Not as a commercial HOA property, but as a real community garden.
Free.
Open to everyone. Karen's paperwork doesn't mean a thing here. The applause was deafening. But we weren't stopping there. With Scott's guidance, we unveiled the formation of a community oversight committee, a grassroots coalition dedicated to ensuring no HOA could overreach its legal boundaries again. It wasn't just about Karen anymore. It was about every resident who'd been bullied, lied to, and scammed into submission. By the end of the meeting, residents were lining up to cancel their HOA memberships. Some had already filed fraud complaints against Karen. The dam had cracked, and the flood was unstoppable. But as the crowd dispersed, I spotted a sleek black sedan parked near the ranch entrance. A man in a sharp suit leaned against it, watching from a distance. His expression wasn't curious. It was calculating. Karen wasn't going to fade quietly. Emily came up beside me, noticing him too. She's sending in the lawyers now. Let her, I said, watching the suit climb back into his car. We've got the one thing she can't fake, proof. The battle lines had shifted. Karen's clipboard and scare tactics were useless now. The next round would be fought with legal documents and public pressure. And this time, we weren't playing defense. Karen's empire was crumbling, but she wasn't done swinging. 2 weeks after the town hall, a thick envelope arrived, hand-delivered by a courier who looked like he wanted no part of this drama. Inside was a formal lawsuit. Karen was suing us for damaging the HOA's reputation and illegally obstructing community governance. Her demand? $500,000 in damages. Emily skimmed the document, arching an eyebrow. She's suing us for exposing the truth? I smiled. Let her try. But Karen hadn't sent this to win in court. She was banking on the lawsuit to scare us into submission, to make a public show of power. The clipboard may have been gone, but the legal theatrics had just begun. She had underestimated one thing. We didn't scare easy. The very next morning, I called for a community press conference. We set it up right at the ranch, in front of the newly reclaimed garden where locals were already planting vegetables. News outlets arrived, tipped off by the growing noise of Karen's scandal. Cameras rolled as families, once silenced by HOA threats, stood together, defiant and unafraid. I stepped to the podium, holding up Karen's lawsuit for everyone to see. This isn't about contracts or bylaws, I said. This is about control. For years, Karen used fear to expand her HOA beyond its legal reach. She fined people into silence. She bullied folks off their own land. But this ranch, this community, we don't bow to paper tyrants. Deputy Scott followed, unveiling documented proof of Karen's fraudulent claims. Deeds, boundary surveys, even recorded complaints from residents she had extorted. The evidence was undeniable. But the real blow came when Scott announced that Karen was now under formal investigation, not just for harassment, but for HOA fraud and armed assault. That was the turning point. Within days, former HOA members filed a class action lawsuit against Karen personally. The county began proceedings to dissolve her HOA charter, citing gross misconduct and illegal expansion. The local news dubbed it the Karen coup, an HOA tyrant dethroned by her own arrogance. As for the lawsuit against us, it never made it to court. Karen's legal team, realizing they were holding a sinking ship, quietly withdrew. Karen herself disappeared from public view, her empire reduced to cautionary whispers in neighborhood meetings. But for us, the work had just begun. We transformed the once restricted community garden into a symbol of resistance. Families who had once been fined for having a single flower pot on their porch now planted rows of tomatoes, squash, and sunflowers, free from HOA interference. Emily organized weekend markets. The boys gave hayrides, their laughter echoing across fields that no longer felt under siege. The ranch wasn't just ours anymore. It belonged to every family Karen had tried to control. One afternoon, as we were wrapping up the market, a familiar face appeared. It was the sharply dressed lawyer Karen had sent weeks earlier. But this time, his posture wasn't smug. "I just wanted to say," he began, "off the record, that what you did here, it's impressive. Most people cave." I shrugged. That's the problem. People like Karen count on most folks not fighting back. He offered a polite nod, then quietly left. I didn't need his approval. The ranch was speaking for itself. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden light over the now thriving fields, Emily slipped her hand into mine. "Think she'll ever come back?" she asked. "Maybe," I said, watching the community mingle freely where Karen once dreamed of fences and fines. "But next time, she'll know exactly who she's dealing with." Karen had come onto our land, gun drawn, clipboard ready, believing she could force us into her little empire. She hadn't realized she was standing on soil that had never been, and would never be, hers to claim. She thought rules could outmuscle ownership. She thought fear would silence us. She thought wrong. The Harris Ranch stood free. And now so did the entire community.